So in today's video, I want to walk you through my design file of a client project where I worked on building an MVP mobile app that I ultimately charged a client $30,000 for. And so I want to give you a realistic look into how I organize that file, kind of what's in there and what you can realistically expect on some of these higher ticket clients and files to help, reveal some of the sauce behind the curtain. So if that sounds interesting, stick around and I'll walk you through the whole file. And let's get into it. Okay, so first off, in here, I have this general page structure across kind of anything that I work on or any sort of product that I am designing. I have a pretty similar file structure here. I have the top level cover, which tells me what the product is, the year it was, what the specific item is, and like in this case, it is a actual guest app, so specific to a diner. And I guess I take a step back. So this client was a client who is in the secret shopping dining space, and so they are building a marketplace for people to be able to go to a restaurant and do a secret dining experience, leave feedback, and then be able to have that restaurant then get that feedback anonymously so that restaurant can improve their either menu or improve their customer service or anything of that sort. And so I help them build that out from ground zero up. So we mentioned that it's for the app. And so generally, same page structure, right? For me, I have kind of a few key sections. The cover, I have this dev ready section. I have prototypes if those are relevant, but with Figma Make, I don't do those quite as many. It would just be more with that. A review section, and then where we kind of get into the meat of the work, we kind of break it up into like an onboarding segment and the main app, and then kind of all those sub pages within there. And then if I ever have general design system stuff, sometimes I'll use that, sometimes I'll use an external file, but for this one I just used an external file and kind of adjusted it for this project because we were moving so fast. So under dev ready, this is where I move files into when they are ready and complete, and where most of the work is done is under this main app and awaiting copy. And so for me, there's a few key reasons that I do that. I think number one is it gets really, really messy and hard for clients to be able to actually parse through and see the information and tend to get lost a lot in the file. And so if I were to be presenting these in, the calls that we have every single week, it would be very easy to get lost in the file and not actually be able to find anything and then be overwhelmed. And then it would just kind of lead to endless conversation that derails us, right? And so my playground is pretty messy. I do a lot of explorations. We go through a lot of the same stuff. And so I break these out into segments. So like, for example, in the main app, it was like, what is the experience for us booking a dining experience? And so that distinct flow is all contained within there because we'll be meeting on that, at some point in time. And then everything that I explore around the wallet and cashing out your payments and your payment history and your linking to bank accounts and Venmos. And then I separate out the other flow of like the vetting process and some maps pieces. And then exploring further on the map, right? Like another segment. And then what's the experience where they chat with the AI bot and how does that display? And like, what does that experience feel like? And then the profile. And so obviously these are not... and then referral flow, like how are they going to get people in and spread the word? So none of these are fully fleshed out usually here. It's basically my playground to go in and explore individual pieces, right? And play off one another and not have a place for the client to go in and get distracted from. And so I kind of just very distinctly separate these things. If it's a really big chunk of work, maybe I'll separate it. We'll have multiple work in progress, but for this, we went through a lot of rounds of actual iterations on the onboarding experience, what that could look like, and, the subtleties of like, how does this conversation work in the onboarding? And there's a lot of little subtleties. I won't go super, super into depth to that, but there's a lot of explorations in each of these work in progress, and so I denote those. I have gotten feedback from clients that they really like the way this is organized. It's really easy for them to find things and for developers to find things as well. And one thing I like to do is once things are kind of in this, where I'm like, okay, we're gonna have a review coming up. I like to pull things out of my work in progress and move them into like a review section. And so you'll see like, hey, we wanted to update some browsing from the homepage. And so I drug out that one key piece from my, exploration pages to make it super clear, so we could go through and review just this area and have a very clear place to reference, right? And talk about it and make notes or anything if that is the case, right? And I make it very easy for the client to find because it's like review. So if they want to go back and see the things that we talked about, they go straight to review. They can make notes, they can review, they can drop in things as needed. And so that seems to work pretty well, right? Like a card updates, like little minor updates, and obviously eventually I end up clearing these things if, need be. And so once something has been completed or ready, or we talked about it and things have been approved, then this is when I clean it up and move it to its designated section under Dev Ready. I like to have it clearly separated out here on Dev Ready into each individual flow or part of the experience, rather than dumping everything into one Dev Ready tab and then having to have them go through every single little thing. I think it's easier for a client to parse through this. If they're like, hey, I want to find this onboarding piece, instead of hunting through everything, they can go under Dev Ready, they can go to onboarding, and they still see that these are all ready. And then I drop each one of these flows into its own frame or board, so that they can go in and see the full kind of like happy path, if you will. For this client, we did a lot of happy paths, and we kind of just inferred a lot of the what ifs or the edge cases and stuff like that, and I kind of just worked with the developer to make sure those were accounted for, because we wanted to move fast. We didn't want to think about all those, every little thing, in order to ship and get it out the door. And then if you go into the booking experience, similar thing. This was much more robust, but we had it broken up, right? Once we finally had the approval, I brought it in like, how do we browse experiences from a homepage? And how do they book that dining experience, right? And then from a single item, from a full meal. And so we broke it up into those kinds of pieces. Single item booking experience, what happens if it's a full meal that they want to do? How do they cancel a booking? What do different card states look like? What do different text messages show? What's the base state? What are the different card progressions on the home page? So there's a lot of little nuances, but it's all contained within that booking experience. And then with the wallet, same thing, right? We moved it over to, hey, let's have linking the payments, removing a connection, your payment history, and how you cash out within your wallet. And then your map, right? How do you browse the map experience? And what do those different states look like? And the list versus the map view, and filled and not. And then the profile, right? We separate those all out. And so this makes it very clear, like when a developer wants to go and reference like what's the most up-to-date files, they're able to go reference them there. So that's the basic kind of like TLDR of how I set up a thing. So if you look at it, this is probably what we ended up 1, 2, 3. All this was included in MVP. I think it took us a few months to finally get around iterations and get to a final product, but it's pretty cool to see it all come together. But yeah, just wanted to show you kind of a behind the scenes of what that looks like for a real client project and what my files set up like, and what it looks like. So hopefully you found this valuable. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it in the comments below, and hit that like and subscribe button. And see you next week.